Welcome to Future Role Model, a podcast that praises the unconventional and redefines what it means to be a role model. I'm happy to be back in Los Angeles finally after a run in the Midwest, and my Vegas show opened this past week. So definitely, if you're in Las Vegas, every week Future Role Models Live will be available to you at 8 p.m. at the Artisan Hotel. Please come support. And in the house today for this episode, I have Mr. Luke Null.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And my voice sounds a little bit raspy today, and that's because I probably blew it out 80 times over in Las Vegas.
Just smoking so many cigarettes inside while you play slots.
Pretty much. I mean, like, I don't smoke anymore. I quit 8 years ago, and that's what I say when I'm drunk to people that I'm bumming a cigarette from.
Sure. Yeah, right. What was your brand?
It was P-Funk Lights.
There you go. All right.
Did you ever smoke? Was that it?
I never smoked cigarettes, but all of my friends did in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that I just never really got the buzz, right? I definitely smoked my fair share of cigarettes, but I'm like, never really felt the allure of why, like,
to full-time smoke?
Yeah, exactly.
To pick it up as a career?
Yeah, it just didn't, I just didn't really get the nicotine buzz much.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a little bit, but I'm like, I don't know that I need to do this.
Yeah, and every once in a while when I do have one now, it just makes me feel so gross that I don't want one for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, if I'm very drunk, I'll smoke one, and then I'll like wake up the next morning and be like,
everything tastes like anus, and
exactly.
Your chest feels very heavy and bad. So, Luke, how long have you lived in Los Angeles now?
I think, I'm coming up on 1 year. I think.
No.
I'm at 1 year now.
Just a year.
Either a year or close to it, yeah.
Dang, I didn't know you were that fresh out here.
I'm pretty fresh out here, fresh to death. I was in New York in 2018 and 2017 and Chicago before that.
How long were you in Chicago for?
I was in Chicago 5 years almost to the day, exactly.
Same here.
Yeah.
But because you started in Chicago when?
I was there 2012 to 2017.
Yep, and I left in 2011 because I think that's what we talked about at that last show we were on. I was like,
Ships passing in the Chicago night.
Just missed each other. But you're a Midwest boy.
Oh, yeah. Born and bred.
Which city?
Grew up in the burbs of Cincinnati.
Okay.
Went to public high school in the north side of Cincinnati. Went to college at Ohio U. Mm-hmm. So not Ohio State, but OU. And then right after college, moved straight to Chicago and started doing comedy for free all the time, nonstop.
Yeah, same. Yeah. It's funny to think about. I'm like, man, I've survived a lot of lifetimes already, and I'm only 34.
Right.
So I wonder what's going to come next. Growing up in the Midwest, because I actually haven't spent much time in Ohio. Have I really been to Ohio?
It's all the same.
It's all the same. I feel like, I've been to Indiana. Obviously, a lot of the Illinois, Wisconsin, Minneapolis region. I'll
say this, of all of them, and I feel like I've spent a decent amount of time in Michigan, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, and, the Midwest. I'll say Indiana's the one that, like, doesn't get hated on nearly as much as it deserves to.
I know.
Like, if any of them, you can be like, fuck, that, like, especially driving from Chicago to Cincinnati, you're, like, going diagonally through the entire state
of Indiana,
and it just sucks.
It's just corn, right?
I mean, all the Midwest is corn and soybeans, but I always thought it was funny living in Chicago how much the Illinois natives would hate on Ohio for being like deer shit, middle of nowhere, right? Where in my head, I'm like, we are in the one city in a humongous state
that is full of nothing.
That is full of nothing other than Chicago.
Southern Illinois
Ohio
is scary.
Is nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Ohio, you have like a bunch of mid-range smaller cities. You got Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, Toledo, Akron. You have a bunch of these like smaller cities where it's like, Illinois, that's it.
Yeah, you're
Chicago,
right. Chicago is it. Chicago has everything.
Right.
It's just like a dead limb. Chicago is like the finger, and then everything else is like just
Springfield. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. There's one building downtown.
So did your family all still live back in the Midwest?
So, my folks still live in Cincinnati. My brother lives downtown in Cincinnati. It's gotten a lot more fun. I feel like...
I was going to say, I feel like Cleveland has the rap. Cleveland, I know, is like the best city to live in the country.
It's going through a renaissance, and I think Cincinnati's... a lot of the Midwestern cities, like with the craft beer boom, I feel like a lot of money got poured into the downtowns that were otherwise real bummers and just like manufacturing had left kind of. So I feel like Cincinnati, a little river town, definitely where my brother is living now. It's like, oh, this is fun. Like I was like, if this was like this when I was 20, I would have at least considered living there. Yeah, but it was like murder zone when I was living there.
And like my hometown, I just realized this when I was back this last Midwest tour, but one of my best friends' relatives is a policeman.
Okay.
And his jurisdiction is my old hometown, which used to just be like the most simple, if somebody was doing crime, it was like us drinking in somebody's lawn.
Sure, and the cop knows your parents' names.
We'd all get busted because they just knew that there was a party at certain places every night of the week.
And now it's fentanyl.
Now it's turning into like a meth town and like a major drug king city. I like it blew my mind because he was saying how many people have been shot in my hometown in the last number of months, and I was like, what the fuck?
Drugs are bad.
That's why where there's no space or where there's a lot of space and nothing to do, there should just be a brewery put there because people just need to get drunk for the most.
Get drunk and drive and then do that. Get yourself killed that way rather than shooting each other up over meth.
Or just put them in a bunch of in big drink and driving towns. They should just give everybody golf carts.
Pretty much like all retirement communities.
Yeah, you can't injure somebody going 2 miles an hour, including yourself. And if you do, you definitely deserve to injure yourself.
It's funny too. Like with the dawning of Ubering and stuff. Obviously, small town and Ubering is not available or not a thing. But like, it's really changed the game drinking wise, where it's like you can really you can get after it. Like L.A., not a drinking town, but it's like the bars are going to be open a little later now. It's like it makes sense because it's such a driving culture that's like, oh well, of course the bars close at 12:30 here because people are driving, right? But it's like in Chicago where the infrastructure is built up. Exactly. It's like it's built to get very drunk all the time. Yeah, be able to get home easy.
I don't know anyone who drinks and drives in Chicago just because you don't have to. There's a train, there's taxis, and that's before Uber and Lyft came around. Even here,
I got rid of my car as soon as I moved. I was
to Chicago. Same.
I was like, you don't need it.
Chicago's the best, and people don't know that. But when I meet people and they're like, I'm thinking about moving to Chicago, I'm like, it's the best city. It's the best.
Love it. Miss it. The winter is truly horrific and is the
devil.
Is the lethal strike against it. But everything else is awesome. Exactly. You can get around so easy. And like the people who park their cars and like have cars year round in Chicago that don't have covered parking, it's so brutal. Like my roommate for years had a car and it's just like you're leaving that car out in like these Chicago blizzards.
Just covered in snow. Like it's in a block of ice for a couple months.
Exactly. You're basically being like, I want to take 10 years off of my car's lifetime. Yeah.
After one winter, the first winter I went through with my car before I got rid of it, it was under snow for probably about 6 days before I had a neighbor come and help me dig it out. And then by the time I got it usable again was probably like a month or two later. And it wasn't running. And I obviously I figured it was something to do with the elements, but also creatures will find homes in your car.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because they can. And so there was like a rat family living in like in your tailpipe? In my engine.
Oh my God.
And so they chewed through a bunch of wires. So I had to get a bunch of things replaced. And then after that I was like, what am I doing? I just need to
that's some wild
junk this shit.
Yeah. That's the lethal strike against Chicago. And it's like whenever I would visit friends out here when I still lived in Chicago, they would inevitably bring it up in like a smug way, like, how's the winter though? Oh yeah, you guys have a really cool comedy scene there. Cool. How's the winter though?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you guys win. That's no argument to be made.
That's why I want to have a place in Chicago and then be here in the couple months that it's nasty there. I mean, it's really only 2 months that are unbearable. But those 2 months are pretty more. Maybe it's a little bit longer.
It's one of those things where it's like, part of it is the duration. You're like, God, it's fucking May and it's snowing still.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because you just don't know. It might be 75 one day and then it's 40.
Yeah, it's really good for your sinuses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Keep your body in check. So growing up in the Midwest, I mean, what was your family life like? Did you have like an entertaining family or?
I feel like that was like, I remember when I was interviewing and jumping through the hoops during SNL and all that stuff, that they would always ask you like, do you have a funny family? And I was like, God,
not
no.
at all.
Not at all. Like, My mom is a special ed teacher, has done all the grades. This is her 36th year teaching. She's saying it's her last year, but I believe she'll work forever. Does she really love it? She's a busybody, and for her, like a day of rest, she's so type A. She just needs to be going, and she's so social, and I just can't see her ever really stopping 100%. Like she'll at least be like a teacher's aide, and like you know what I mean. She'll do something, but she's been a special ed teacher for a long time. And my dad was most of the time growing up as superintendent for a golf course. So basically, like the groundsman. Yeah, I know like 3 people who have done that job because it's such a Midwest job. It's a very Midwest job. And like the 2008 housing crisis was also kind of the golf course crisis too. It's just like, especially, So he definitely if you can't afford a house, you can't afford a country club membership. Exactly. So he bounced around to a bunch of them while I was like in middle school and high school, and then eventually was just like he's now a groundskeeper for a private school in Cincinnati. So they have like kind of more basic Midwest jobs. Very basic, definitely standard. Grew up in a little ranch style house. Mm-hmm. 1-story little house, which growing up, I was always like, oh, I'm totally like, middle class. I had friends who had big, giant like houses because we had such a giant school district that there was definitely like some rich kids. And then it took me years to realize like, oh, my family doesn't have any money at all. I was like, it was one of those things where I was just like, oh, man. That didn't like my parents did a really good job of kind of burying the fact that we didn't have
below
much
standard.
Money. Yeah. I was like, oh, good. We'll get on them, Parents have to be creative to make you feel like you're not less than. Yeah, exactly. But it really did. Yeah, it was one of those things where it was never really in my head. It's only looking back where I'm like, oh, shit. Right. It's like where we went to vacation was like a couple years. My grandma had a timeshare in Daytona Beach. Nice. So just the trashiest possible destination. And like as a kid, like Daytona Beach, heaven on earth. Like I was like, there's nothing better. Yeah, my grandma's got she's got a timeshare in Daytona Beach, which is like the most embarrassing thing to say. But as a kid, I was like, this is badass. Cool. Yeah, it's like a foreign country at that age. Oh, I loved it. I mean, just like, the beach. She may as well own an island at that point. I mean, cars drive on the beach. It's just all sorts of trash. Yeah. I've been to Daytona once, and I was like 8, but I remember being like, I don't need to come back here. Yeah. As a kid, I was like, this is the best place. So, it wasn't for years later. I was like, oh, shit. Pretty white trash. Yeah. And what were your siblings like? So I just have one little brother. Okay. And he was 3.5 years younger, 4 years younger in school. It's a pretty big chunk, actually. It's enough to make him just very annoying, and he was always the kind of kid who's always trying to hang around me and my friends, and he was just very annoying. But it's like too big of a disparity. If it's within like a year or two, you have exactly. Yeah, we never really were in the same school. Like when I was a senior, he was in 8th grade. Yeah, you know what I mean. So like it was a baton passing. Yeah. But he went to the same college as me. Obviously, when we got older, we're thick as thieves and close now. But as kids, we fought all the time. Yeah, of course. And I definitely we fought all the time. Yeah. Yeah, he was very annoying. What kind of fighting? Just like scrapping like boys? Or? It was definitely because he never won a fight. That was the big thing, but he was constantly instigating it. Like he was just a little gnat buzzing in my ear at all times when we were kids. Yeah. Like he was the kind of kid, like if I had a sunburn on my neck and I was like, Jake, please just don't touch the sunburn on my neck. The first thing he would do is poke the sunburn on my neck. So it's just like, it would be that kind of fight where I would just thump him on the arm and he was in tears and it was over. Yeah, exactly. But it was that for a long time. Yeah. And it wasn't, and then just like overnight, we were just like, okay, we're done. And what did you both do to entertain yourselves as like, did the creativity start to come out for you at a young age or? I probably like, as far as what I'm doing now, which is, doing musical comedy, right? Which is, everybody loves it and respects it. But I feel like in high school, probably when I was like 14, I think I got a guitar. Like a bunch of my friends we're starting to do like garage bands and
of course,
and shit like that. So I definitely was like a little late to that game. All my friends were already kind of playing guitar and were pretty
playing
good.
Incubus songs.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Yeah. Nirvana covers.
We had that same shit. Just that for two guys that would always bring the guitar to every party.
Oh yeah, that was me in college for sure. I wouldn't bring the guitar, but I would do the move where I was like, where if we're at somebody's house and they have like a guitar stand, I'm gonna be like, is this a guitar?
Can I play around with that for a second?
Is this guitar? Yeah, so
I might know a couple things on here. I'm not very good or anything.
Yeah, exactly. I barely know anything. I definitely was that douchebag and learned the hard way that that's not okay.
Not to do that at the parties, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were 14 is when you started getting a little bit musical?
It's definitely when I started like playing with garage bands and stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a big outlet. And it wasn't until I started playing around with my friend that we just goofing around would write these little comedy songs and that would always garner a better reaction than any other music I ever messed around with. So I was like, oh, yeah, this is kind of like my lane. Like, is this?
Do you remember any of like the
songs?
First ones that you wrote about, or what the topics were?
I remember my friend Seth and I wrote a song called "Love Me 6 Times." And it was just about like fucking 6 times. And it was like, that was the whole joke, it was just like really, really doubling down on like 5 is not going to be enough, but 7 is too much. You know, like, so it was just like 6 times. And that's the whole song. It was like 2 minutes long, but it was a really catchy, like a little harmony. It was this like catchy thing.
That's
and we
cool.
did that. And we were probably like 15 when we wrote that song. So a lot of the early stuff, a lot of it was just dick and butt songs, all right? A bunch. And it hasn't been until like, even if you listen to my album, like some of those old songs are dick and butt songs, you know, if all my stuff is a pie chart, the dick and butt portion
would be a larger
it's a good slice of the pie, but I'm actively not writing that stuff now. If it comes up,
eventually it'll slink down into a smaller.
Exactly. I'm trying to reduce the percentage of my catalog that is dick and butt songs, but they're there, and it's.
What's your favorite dick and butt song
that I've ever written or that exists?
I think "Fuck Her Gently" is one of my favorite.
I mean, what a classic.
Dick butt songs.
I mean,
I think that falls in the dick and butt category.
Absolutely. Tenacious D was formative for me. Like I devoured that album when I was a kid. I thought that was awesome. I thought they were so fucking funny. But the thing that I really liked about them was that they're good. They're good songs. Like, go listen to Tribute. Like, it's a great song
too.
He's got a great voice. Mm-hmm. So that is like. Especially when people talk to me about music comedy and what I do now, a lot of the music comedians that I love and respect, Flight of the Conchords, Garfunkel and Oates, Bo Burnham, Tim Minchin, all these people they all are good musicians for sure, but a lot of them are like really doubling down on how witty and creative their wordplay is and how many jokes they can get in and how many, like Garfunkel and Oates and Bo Burnham, they talk so much and there's 1,000 jokes in a single song and blah, 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 right? I'm never been that way. That's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to dazzle people with, you know, my wordsmithing.
I think you have like, you fit a lot of clever into your songs, at least the ones that I've heard.
Thank you for saying that.
I don't feel like you need to necessarily
If you heard
talk
some of my old ones, you'd be like, oh, what?
Oh, no.
Oh, Jesus. But thank you. Again, it's been a conscious effort to be like, maybe steer away from the... But the underlying principle, at least something that I always strive for, is that I want it to be a good song. Like, I want it to be a catchy little tune first.
Yep.
And
the
then
God one was like the religion one.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty new.
Pretty new. It's good.
Thank you. That one I'm cooking on. I'm excited when I go on tour to bust that one out and see how the Midwest
how it takes it.
Takes that one. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's always a good testing ground. I feel like if the Midwest... I
think the crowd that comes out for me is pretty down. They're pretty down for a lot of stuff.
I would think so.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely had people, if there's ever been any songs that I've played that people have gotten upset with, I've had a few people get mad at that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Of all the things. But, I mean, I know it really just depends on the city.
Depends on the city.
There are certain cities that I know are down for anything, and that's why I've enjoyed like opening this Vegas show, because Vegas is kind of like
if you're
out in Vegas you don't give a shit about much.
I think you're right.
And if you do, you're drunk. And so then you're easy to combat.
Exactly.
But so when did you start thinking that you might actually want to go down this path, or what did you go to college for?
So, I went to college and my parents helped me pay for half my college, right? Mm-hmm. So they saved up. My mom was like, this is very important. You got to go to college. I went to, public university. But my dad was not for me going to college. He thought it was like a huge waste of money and that I was going to dick around and waste their money, right?
Did he think you were going to go into comedy?
No, not at all. In high school, I switched, early on, it was clear I was not an athletic person. So I was doing the plays and the musicals.
Give some examples. Did you try out for any sports and it went really wrong?
I definitely played a lot of flag football and embarrassed my dad on a baseball diamond and it was bad news. I skipped, had to force out at second. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. You're not forcing me out. I'm going to third. So I went straight from first to third. It was bad. Embarrassing my dad, putting his hat over his face. Embarrassment.
Ouch.
But to their credit, to my dad's credit, could have easily been a sports dad and been like, fuck, you got to do it, But he was really, my mom and my dad were very supportive of me doing what I liked.
Find your own path.
Yes. So, they were very supportive of me doing the plays and the musicals. My high school had a radio station. It was a big, giant public high school.
Cool.
But me and my buddies, that was kind of my friend group, were the radio guys. So we would music was always a big.
So you probably learned a little bit of your persona from that as well.
Definitely was just a jackass all the time. But yeah,
sure.
Yeah. We hosted the Flavor Flav call-in hour, and we would just talk about Flavor of Love, that VH1 show that was on for years, and just have people.
Yeah.
It was pretty. We had 2 ladies that would always call in.
That's amazing.
They wanted to talk about Delicious.
I feel like I want to hear some of these old episodes of this radio station.
I'm so thankful that it's buried and gone and dead, because it's I'm sure just a landmine of oh gosh.
Is that what happened to SNL? Is that really what they found? Some.
Yeah, they dig through my shit. They just find the Flavor of Love call-in hour.
We'll get there, because I feel like SNL is in such it's trending on everything right now because of the latest. But we don't have to talk about that. This is about you. But it's
I've already been fired.
There's always
and not for my unwokeness.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Which is, I have my own opinions on that, but that's
a whole thing,
time.
Right? Yeah.
But so when you ended up getting into college, what were you kind of aiming to do?
College, my degree was, and again, because my parents were helping me pay for it, my mom was like, don't do theater. Mm-hmm. If we're helping you pay for it, get a practical degree, do theater on the side, do the student activities and stuff. Do whatever you want in your spare time, but get in their mind, a practical degree, which is very funny, looking at my path and how things have gone. But right. I have a Bachelor's of Sciences in Geographic Information Systems. So GIS.
What does that even do?
Is computer-based mapping, cartography, right? So useless. I'm still paying for it. I'll never use it.
Maybe it's helping you on tour. You never know.
It's not.
Make your own map of your own tour.
I will say I will say that it wasn't that I never ever used it, because in college and a year after college, I worked for a geospatial firm in Dayton where I would survey airports. For 3 years, I surveyed airports, driving around a pickup truck. I was the guy on the side of the highway with the fluorescent vest and the tripod. And I'm painting chevrons on the side so that they can see it from the sky when they take pictures. It's photogrammetry. It's a whole thing, right?
That is a whole thing.
But I drove all over the country in a pickup truck for 3 summers and 3 winters. I worked them seasonally, but I definitely consider that to be, and you're alone too.
Yeah.
So I definitely look at those times and where I'm like, oh, that's when I became an adult man. That, it's when I'm on my own, working in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
Saw a bear in the wild. It was a whole thing.
What?
Yeah. I'm an Eagle Scout too. So that was the thing I did, which is also very cool. I was very cool is what I'm trying to say in high school.
You were obviously not nerdy at all.
Not nerdy at all. Huge dork. But Yeah, I mean, surveyed. So I did technically use my degree at one point, right?
So if being that you're so, map capable and a former Eagle Scout and creative.
Current.
If you were, once an Eagle Scout, always an Eagle Scout?
Yeah.
Only because I started watching the show The Island the other day. If you were to have 3 things on a random island that you got lost on, what would they be? You
can get a lot of utility out of some rope, a good knife. Rope and a good knife, and like maybe a big ass blue tarp. You can really get a lot of utility out of those 3 things.
That's good to know. Yeah. Okay, in case I'm ever in a survival situation, I always
like Castaway. If he doesn't have that rollers or that ice skate, like he's fucked.
Oh yeah,
yeah, you're fucked.
It's true. That's a good point. I need to learn how to use like practical knives more. I've never had to like whittle something in my life.
The uses of whittling are it's literally called whittling because it's a time waster, right? Yeah. But I feel like there's definitely like you can do a lot with some good rope for sure. Lashing things together. Yeah. You get your slip knots if you need to, hang yourself. There's a lot.
Shit.
Hey, it's a desert island situation.
You may just want to stop.
Not that I'm like Survivor Man or anything, but I say I know at least a decent amount.
These are good skills. These are good life skills to have. On top of the mapping of things. It's just what I'm going to call the former job you could have had.
GIS. Yeah. Surveying was wild.
So what changed when you got out of college? Like how did you end up here?
So when I was surveying, there's never been more of a like, that itchy feeling of like, because I'm definitely somebody who is comfortable being around others. Would consider myself lean toward an extroverted person where I recharge when I'm with other people. Being on my own is work for me. Mm-hmm. So I felt that when I was out on the road. I felt like almost like I was in a jail cell marking the days, of like when I was going to be able to get back. But I would bring my guitar with me. A lot of times I would set up a tripod in the middle of some freaking farmer's field and I'm surveying in this like spot and I just have like 2 hours to burn in my truck. So I wrote a bunch of songs and in
the wilderness.
Yeah. And it was like kind of, I look back on it very romantically where I was like, but it's weird that even when I was totally alone and was like not performing at all for a whole summer, I still was like, I'm going to have a nice little like nest egg of ideas and stuff that I could use in the future that I am working on. Like I was always, it's like that thing. I don't know how you are. Like once I moved to Chicago and was working at a tech startup and office jobs and stuff, I've never been like, as soon as I have to be at work, right, is the moment my brain is like, time to do some creative stuff. Like this is a good idea for a song. It's when I sit down and like, all right, I'm sitting down and I'm trying to write something new. Good luck. Never going to happen.
I can't do it. And that's why whenever I go on tour, I like spend the days hanging out with friends or catching up with people I haven't seen because that inspires me to write new stuff.
Yes.
I write from actual experience. So if I don't experience anything, I don't write shit.
I'm with you.
Sometimes just living your life for a little bit and not worrying about being on stage every night fuels the ability to go back on stage. Because some comics are like, I got to do 2 shows a night forever and ever and ever. And I'm like, you can have 5 days where you don't do shows. You'll be okay. On day 6, you're going to have some new ideas.
Exactly. And in fact, like, I know that move, I'll try to, brain fart a little bit. Yeah, put this into words. In college, I was like definitely looking to do like the student run theater organization, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember I auditioned and I was in Rocky Horror my freshman year, fall quarter. Horror. Oh, I was Brad.
That's so cool.
Oh, I loved it. It was very fun. But the student run theater was also the improv. Like they also had an improv group. And so I was like, I might as well try out for this. And I tried out and my roommate made it and I did not. But they had just gotten, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know anything about improv, a grad student from New York who was a UCB instructor. So he basically was teaching them UCB long form. And I was like, oh, fuck, like this is. And so I tried out again and got in the following quarter. But it became like my thing in college.
That's actually very lucky that you guys had that person.
And then lightning struck twice. Like this guy was done after a year, and then we had another grad student who was from Chicago and was from the Annoyance Theater in Chicago, so he knew his stuff. And so we really got a weird, rare like flavor of the New York long form and Chicago long form.
You got the Polar and the Napier.
You're exactly right, though. It was like, teaching game and teaching character. Yep.
Yeah.
But it was like in college, obviously, everybody's like, yeah, I did comedy in college. We were really cool then. But it's like, it's not even like big fish, small pond syndrome. It's like we were the only fish in a fishbowl or in a sandwich bag with water in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and it was awesome. Like we got to, it was like such a great place to learn comedy and to just have a great packed house every Thursday night. We'd party at our place afterwards.
That's cool.
It was great.
Such a great exposure at a young age because like when I was in school in Minneapolis, somebody suggested I should check out improv, but they didn't know where to really send me. There wasn't really a troupe in Minneapolis yet for that young of people.
Sure.
There was like the Guthrie and anybody involved in that. I'm sure they had like an improv adjacent troupe or something. But
and a lot of it's short form if there is improv.
Yeah, the zip zap zoppy kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's I'm not hating on it. It just wasn't my thing.
Well, the long form teaches you how, because like Second City wasn't like in the beginning it's short form, but then it becomes kind of more longer form, or with the
sketch.
Goal to sketch, exactly. Yeah. So that is such a crucial thing to teach somebody who wants to get into comedy, because you learn how to write.
You do.
How to write dialogue, how to create characters,
and how to commit to something. And it really is just I loved it. It like lit a fire under my butt. I got the degree in GIS, but I was spending all my time devouring improv, rehearsing it, teaching it, doing it, reading about it, everything I could get my hands on. I was obsessed with it. And then a lot of us are, we wanted to keep doing this, and our coach was like, if you want to do improv, then the place to be is Chicago. It's the mecca for improv, and I go down swinging for that. LA and New York definitely have improv, but Chicago, it's the main event,
Yeah. Yep. It's true.
So then I moved to Chicago, and after I graduated.
Did you move alone or did you have buddies?
I moved alone, which is scary. I was long distance with my girlfriend.
You were 22?
I was 22. So then get to Chicago and just get my wiener punched in, you know what I mean? And that's, you have to, right? Just right away, you're like, oh, fuck, like this is going to be hard.
I moved there when I was 21, and it was definitely holy shit.
Yeah.
I had a mattress, a bag of clothes, and a laptop.
Yep.
That was it.
I didn't even have a mattress. My first year in Chicago, I had a pull-out couch. I slept on a pull-out couch. Yeah,
dude,
it was
I was so poor, my grandma would freeze meatballs that she handmade and send them to me, so they'd like kind of be partially still frozen when they got to me, and that's where I would eat for like a week.
My first year in Chicago was pretty fucking brutal. Like I was like a month away from having like move in with my parents' basement again. Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, because you don't know how to make money yet. You don't know how the business works.
I still don't. I literally still don't. But my advice to anyone who's moving to Chicago is that it's absolutely worth it. Plan to have a day job. You cannot. You might be able to count on one hand the amount of people in Chicago who are making a full-time living doing just improv.
Yep.
It's not that you can't do it. It's not a thing, right?
No, unless you're doing cruise ships. But even that, it's only seasonal.
It's not, and then what? Yeah, you can't do that forever. Yeah, but again, I love it. I loved Chicago. I loved my time there. It was super valuable. It's the best comedy scene because there's no money involved.
Yeah,
because no one's getting rich off it. There's like a lot of people there doing it for the love of the game. It's the funniest shows I've ever seen are in Chicago.
And very committed people, like you said.
I mean, and even then there's also like when I was first there, there was definitely like the counterculture to that too, of like the guys who really didn't like being at IO and Second City. They made their own theater, and for years they were like, we don't commit to shit, but we're still the funniest, like Connor O'Malley and Gary Richardson and Tim Robinson.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of these guys were just like So fucking funny. I loved them. And yeah.
It's such a cool troupe. Like, it was so supportive. Like I said, when, Sam Richardson and I have known each other for like 12, 13 years. And,
a killer.
And even when I met him, he was on ETC. Or was he on? He was on main stage. Maybe he was about to be on main stage.
And that means
it doesn't matter.
One of the 5 that you get paid to do comedy.
They're both just really good, so it doesn't really matter. But
and even then, it's like not a livable amount.
Yeah, yeah. And then I mean, everyone's just nice to you when you're coming up still. Like, that's what's cool about it. It's not like, oh, fuck you, you're little noobs. Like, everyone realizes that they did that once too.
Exactly. And Second City might be the only place where there's definitely the politics game, and it's because there's money involved. Mm-hmm. At I.O., you don't get it because it's like, oh, this person shouldn't be here. I mean, there is, of course, quibbling and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's like, no one's making money.
Yeah,
here.
like on the companies and stuff, it's not like you're pulling in like even 100 a show. No. It's like
you're 0 per show.
Yeah.
You're spending money at the bar. They're making money and you're paying a coach too.
Yeah,
it's a racket, and you're in order to even get into these house teams, you're paying for thousands of dollars worth and years worth of classes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole thing. And the thing is, the classes there are some classes that are absolutely worth it, that are great teachers that taught me things that I'm glad I heard. But at the end of the day, you're only ever going to learn by doing it and failing 1,000 times, same as stand-up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started doing more stand-up stuff, and that was only in the tail end of my time in Chicago. Like, I was always doing it here and there, but during maybe my last year and a half, 2 years in Chicago, I was really like making an effort to like get out and
be a solo performer.
And be a solo performer.
Did you ever do just stand up or just the music? Was your music always incorporated in your set?
So music was always incorporated in my set. I definitely did things that, looking back on, I was like, oh, that was me doing stand up, which is like telling, because when I'm not playing the guitar for an hour, like if you listen to my album, there's stories in there of me not playing guitar, because you can't just get song for the whole hour, right? It's a lot. But so when I'm not singing, my stand-up is more like kind of Mike Birbiglia kind of stories with little nuggets of like little mini songs.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so definitely stories. And but they say in improv, like you were saying earlier, like you can only draw off of what you know.
Yeah.
So it's coming up with it on the spot. The only way that you're gonna think of it is if you've lived it or seen it or read it. So it's like, don't do 11 shows a week, every week forever, because your shit gets stale because all you're doing is improv. And then your improv gets really meta and up its own ass, which can be really funny, and I do enjoy it, but it did not help me when I went to New York.
Yeah.
That was what I got good at. So
what was that process like when you were tail ending in Chicago? Did you know you were going to be leaving Chicago, or how did you end up getting the opportunity for SNL to begin with?
So it's always kind of the pie in the sky for the Chicago improv community, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that SNL comes out once a year every summer, right? Mm-hmm. And so I knew that was, everyone knows. And it's always very like spur of the moment. Where they'll come out and randomly a Friday in August, and then Sharna at I.O., the theater owner, will basically call up like 10, 15 people to do their 5 minutes for Lorne and the writers or whoever is coming out to represent SNL. So, and then they'll go see the Second City main stage and ETC show, right? Yeah. So I wasn't as much of a Second City guy really at all. So I was doing I.O., which is hard improv, right? Mm-hmm. Second City, it's a lot of sketch. Their shows are sketch reviews. Yep. I.O., totally made up, right? Mm-hmm. So during the spring, Sharna, the theater owner, will basically cut out a slot every Monday night for like 3 months to see performers at I.O. do their 5 minutes of solo sketch material, which is very funny because everyone there is doing improv all the time. No one is doing sketch. Right? Yeah. So do you watch each other even and think, what?
You do. Yeah, I'm sure sometimes you're pleasantly surprised, and other times you're like,
it's a different sport. It's a different sport because it's like, that's the best way I can describe it, where it's like improv is not even a sport, right? It's valuable. I love it. It's like working out. It's like doing leg lifts. And you're right.
It is. It's like being at the gym.
Pumping iron, and then like stand up and sketch comedy is like, this is soccer. You've been lifting weights. You got really beefy biceps, and that can help you with the throw-ins if the ball goes out of the end line or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like it absolutely enriches and helps your stand up and your sketches, but it's not its own sport.
Yeah,
and people don't pay you to do it, right?
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is like everyone is spending all their time doing improv at IO, but then when it's game time, they're asking you to write sketches, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a mixture, like you said, of people that,
and solo sketch work, by the way, is something to even be
hard.
Because like I'm starting to work on my one woman show for next year for Edinburgh, and
nice,
and that's like an hour of a one person sketch.
Wow.
I mean, and to retrain your brain to write that way when you've been writing for like other shit, or when you just finished writing a stand up special, they're not those aren't even the same.
Different monsters.
And so, in order to do a one person like sketch audition for something like SNL, you have to figure out a clever way to present your characters.
Yeah.
Which is the hardest thing for a lot of people who even have really good characters.
Yeah, there's tons of
some people just don't know how to present them properly. You can't it's less
right. You got to be able to write it.
It's less accepted to just be like, no, I'm going to do this. Blah, 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 blah. You have to like figure out a way to like connect the dots a little bit better.
You got to thread the needle. It's hard because you're right. You have to nail whatever you're doing and have good jokes in it. So it's like that's part of it too.
And have it flow in some way.
And it's like you said, like there was a bunch of people that I respected so much and I think are some of the funniest comedians alive doing improv in Chicago. People who've made me belly laugh, almost piss myself, right?
Yeah.
And then I see them do their 5 minutes of solo sketch characters and I'm like, what? Like they get up there and just think that you can wing it, where it's like, no, you got to be tight. Like this needs to be something that you did more than one time.
Can you give examples without saying any names, obviously? But can you give like some examples of what would surprise you, maybe in a negative way and in a positive way?
Yeah, I think, especially in Chicago, a lot of people don't watch SNL.
Yeah.
First of all, people don't watch the show. So that's a big thing where it's like, so just like a lot of people are trying to do what they think SNL wants to see from them, which is like impressions, a hot political take. It's like at the end of the day, you better come with you better kill that crowd. They better be laughing hard, right?
Yeah.
They really, at the end of the day, they want it to be funny, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that I was surprised by were people doing kind of hacky impressions. And I think, and I'll say this too to anyone who's like trying to go out for SNL, if your impression isn't 10 out of 10 great, it's only going to hurt you.
Yeah.
So chances are there's already someone there who does it better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or I'm just saying, like, you have to not only nail the impression, which is very hard and very few people can do, but like you said earlier, you also have to write funny jokes for this dynamite impression that you have.
Yeah.
So if you have an Al Franken impression, I don't even know, whatever it is, whoever the politician of the day is that you want to.
Sure.
You need to be the best at it. And it better be a funny bit underneath it.
Yeah.
Like the first time I auditioned, I didn't do any. I did 0 impressions. None. Then they flew me out, and I did a bunch of characters and I did a song. 0 impressions. I never did any. I mean, I'm not there, so obviously I got that. That was not good for me. But they hired me, and it wasn't until the second time that they actually flew me out to New York City and had me do the official audition a second time. They were like explicitly like, please, any impressions, anything that that we can use. So that was but I'm saying, like, in your preliminary audition to get flown out to SNL, just be funny. Don't worry about what you think the formatting it needs to be.
Yeah,
just show them that you're good at writing, because you're going to be a writer
choose
too.
For yourself. The first time and the second time.
So,
because the first audition, it was then they flew you out for a second audition, right?
Right. So I actually auditioned in front of Lorne and Colin Jost and all these guys. In 2016, they came out to Chicago, and I got to go up in front of them, and that was the year they hired Alex Moffat.
Yeah. So Alex and I started at Second City together.
Love Alex. Great guy.
He was in a different troupe, but he was dynamic.
So funny.
From the beginning. I knew he was special. Yeah, so when he got picked, I was like, no fucking kidding. He's been crushing these characters.
He's dynamite.
And impressions. I mean, he's just so good.
But he got hired.
Yeah.
The first time I ever went up in front of them, and that was in Chicago, right? So you're doing it in the packed theater at I.O., of your friends and family. So it's a very you're playing a home game, right? Yeah. So that year I did a bunch of characters. I did a little bit of music. And then the following year, Sharna was like, picked me to do it again. And in my head, I had...
So nothing happened the first time?
No, didn't get flown out.
Okay.
But again, in my head, I'm like, this is just amazing that I even got to do this, right? So it really is crazy. Like, of all the things, like, I got to go up and I got 5 minutes where Lorne Michaels and these people had to watch me and take me seriously for a second.
Well, and not everybody in Chicago gets picked in the first place.
No, it's already hard to get a slot, right? So I was already happy about it. And then the second year, she picked me to do it again. And they had just hired Alex Moffat, Mikey Day, and Melissa Villaseñor. So I was like, okay, 2 white guys? They're absolutely not hiring another white guy this year, right? I was like certain that I was based so in my head, it gave me a freedom to not put pressure on myself. Like, so the second time when they came and saw me, I didn't try to jam as much stuff and as many characters and as many funny takes and here's this and that. I did 2 things. I did 1 4-minute long bit where I played God, like Christian God. I just came out with like fucking like trucker hat on that says sounds like bullshit to me, and I just came out and did like crowd work. I came out, which is a bad move, right? It's definitely like a Hail Mary, but it's me.
That's a risk.
It's a huge risk, but it was me basically being like, I'm out. Hey guys, me, Christian God. Just wanted to say y'all have been fucking everything up nonstop. If you guys have any questions or anything you want me to kind of clear up, answer for you, I'm happy to set the record straight. Just to course correct a little bit here because you guys are destroying this planet. So it was me just like answering audience questions and being like, and it ended up just like destroying because it was very different than what everyone else was doing.
Sure, yeah.
And then I ended with like a minute-long snippet of a song I had written.
That's great.
I did 2 things, which is that's not good, like smart, right?
Right.
But I felt very good, and I at the end of that night, I just remember being like, man, I'm so glad I got to do this again because this is the audition. I was like happy that they got to see me do this, right?
Yeah.
Then they flew the next night. They met up with 6 of us for drinks downtown at the Ritz.
Oh,
right?
that had to have been so cool. So how
crazy.
did you get notified of that?
So I still have the voicemail. I missed Sharna's call, and she called me at like 2:30 in the morning, and she left me a voicemail like, "I told you to leave your phone on." Like it's a very like they want to get drinks with you tomorrow, so you better. It's like it's very cute and funny. I still kept it, but. I ended up getting drinks with them, and that's like when I got to meet Lorne and Steve Higgins, one of the producers. He's like the sidekick for Jimmy Fallon.
Yep.
Got to meet them and talk with them. Eric Hemward, who was the head writer at the time. But met Lorne. It's he freezes you out. It's kind of the crazy test, and it's I was the only one that got a drink because they was on their tab. I was like, oh, we're at the Ritz. Oh, I have a whiskey.
Nobody else drank?
Everyone else was so afraid to drink in front of everyone. I mean, it is very and intentionally nerve-wracking. He's trying to make you sweat, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, that's the whole story of my conversation with Lorne. But I met Lorne, and again, every step along the way, I'm like, this is insane that I even got to do this, right? That I got to meet him wow, crazy, right?
It's kind of like the thing. One of my friends, he said his success path was always make the opposite choice. George Costanza from Seinfeld.
Yeah, all of my instincts up to this point have led me in the wrong way.
Opposite choice. Yeah. So I mean, you did the opposite choice for your audition. You did the opposite choice as far as like the drinking thing. And so I mean, like it's kind of interesting to hear that you were like, everybody thinks I shouldn't do this, so I'm going to do that.
Right. And then they ended up flying, I think all six of us that he had out for drinks. He flew all of us out to New York, and then also 5 people from Second City.
How old were you at this point?
I was 26, 27.
Okay.
27, because I was 27 when I got hired.
Yeah.
So I was 27, which at the time was the youngest, other than Pete.
Yeah.
Was the youngest by probably like 4 or 5 years. Everyone else was in their early 30s at least. But 27, and they fly us out, and they sent us an email, and the email was like, everybody from Chicago, do exactly what you did when we saw you in Chicago. We just want to see you do it on the 8H stage, so the famous like SNL audition stage.
Yeah.
They're like, Luke, though, you need to write a whole new 5 minutes. Like, we need to see other stuff other than that bit that you did.
Yeah.
And so like right away, my like sinking feeling in my stomach, like I'm so fucked. And this is like in 2 days or something. So I have like 2 days to write a new 5. And a lot of people have been working on a nice tight 5 that showcases them and economically uses their 5 minutes to like, all right, I'm going to do 3 quick impressions, then I'm going to do a little bit, then I'm going to segue into. So I'm like booking myself on every mic I can get to like try out some stuff. So
which is the hardest read too, because like when you're prepping for something big and you try to fit in mics,
it's wild.
You always end up getting the shittiest, unsupportive comedians in the crowd.
Yes.
Nobody, and it's a terrible read.
This was no different.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm trying out new stuff, and like stuff's not fucking work. Some stuff's working, but some stuff's not, and I'm glad. But I'm writing a new 5 minutes. Again, I bookend it with another song, so keeping a musical element. Go out, again, could do a full hour of just talking about the first audition, but I do it, and it's very, there's a lot of pomp and circumstance to it. They sweat you out. You're there all day long. I'm sitting in 80 Bryant's dressing room for 6 hours or something before I get called. You're alone. Mm-hmm. So you're just like pacing around doing what you're going to do. Then they bring you in. They say your name. 3, 2, 1, lights up. You're center stage. You can kind of see them in the back of the room, but you can't really tell how many people or who's back there, but people are back there. Mm-hmm. It's icy cold. They're going out of their way to not give you anything, right? So you're just doing your shit into the abyss. I did my stuff, got a few titters here and there, like it wasn't totally silent the whole time.
Oh, and I was like, fucking intimidating.
I mean, they do that's on purpose. They want to know what you
can handle.
What you can handle, and if you flounder when it's under pressure. I don't know how long we got, but
we got time.
And then walked off and spent the rest of the night. I'd never been to New York City before. That was my first time, and it was a whole thing. Like my flight was delayed, and I got in like 2 hours before my call time, and it was like I'm like taking a cab in from LaGuardia, and I'm going across the Brooklyn Bridge. I've never been to New York City, and I'm on my way to 30 Rock to go audition for Saturday Night Live. It is giving me anxiety talking about it right now. It was so exciting and scary, but at the end of the day, I was like, I walked out and I went, that probably wasn't a winning audition. I felt great about it. I was happy that, I got a few little giggles here and there, but I was like, you know what? I'm looking around the room of these other people who are auditioning, and they are people who are all certified killers, right? People who I love and respect, and then other people that I vaguely am aware of from LA and New York, where I'm like, oh my God. I mean, not me, but these people are incredible. I mean, the fact that I got to do this is crazy, right? Fly back to New York. A few weeks go by.
Fly back to Chicago.
That's what I meant. Fly back to Chicago. Go back to work at my startup job. I'm working. I get the call again. Hey, we're going to have a few of you back. All new 5 minutes. Luke, any impressions? Any political stuff. Anything else that we can, so they were always calling me out.
Pushing
specifically,
you further.
Right?
Yeah.
So the other guys that got called out with me were white dudes. So I was like, oh, maybe I guess they are looking for white guys, right? The game is afoot. But at this point, I wasn't freaking out about writing a new 5 because I just did that, right? I just wrote a new 5 2 weeks ago, right? Uh-huh. So I was like, all right, I already did this. The other guys I flew out with were like sweating it a little bit. They were a little like, fuck. New 5, because some people have been working on it for years, you know? So a new 5 is a stressful thing. I wrote a new 5 with like topical stuff. I remember, but I did it again. I did a few impressions, but this time I knew the room. A lot like the first time in Chicago.
Yep.
You know, I don't know how they're going to react, but the second time I just kind of did my thing. My second SNL audition, I had already mental mapped what it was like. It's ice cold. They're not going to give me anything. They're going to 3, 2, 1 lights up. They're going to, right? Yep. So I planned to do this bit. And then in the news that week, Jay Cutler, who was the quarterback for the Chicago Bears, was going to be an ESPN like talking head. But he had the news like 2 days before the audition was that he was coming out of retirement and he was going to play football again for the Miami Dolphins. And no one knows who Jay Cutler is, you know? No one gives a fuck. But he famously doesn't give a shit, right? He's just like the biggest like eye-rolling asshole.
Sure,
you know? So that was one of my impressions was when they walked me in, I had my little Miami Dolphins hat on. I got a cigarette on my lip, and I'm just scrolling on my phone. 3, 2, 1, Luke Null, lights up. It's on me, and I just stay on my phone with a cigarette in my mouth for like a minute and a half. Like, I don't say anything. I'm just like scrolling on my phone. And then I like wait. I basically wait until they are uncomfortable and kind of sweating a little bit. They start to nervously laugh because I've done nothing so far. And I like kind of noticed that there's people in the room. My whole bit was like, oh shit, sorry, I was playing a game on my phone. I guess we can start the press conference here. So it was just me doing like a press conference, but it was me basically big dicking them and like the whole thing being like, oh, I'm just playing a game. I'm just playing Candy Crush on my phone. Like, you know, that like that it was such a, and they ate it up. They loved that.
Did they know who you were immediately?
No, they didn't. They had no idea who I was. So like, I'm not an impressionist. That's not my strong suit. I can do cartoonish versions of, you know, I can do over exaggerated, and a lot of times that's what they do on the show, right? Some people are great at being dead accurate, like Melissa Villaseñor is like the best. She's so good at impressions. Yeah. I'll never be that, right? That's not my thing. But they really liked it. I did Chris Hayes from MSNBC interviewing for a job at Whole Foods. I did a Taller and Tierra stage dad. I did another little snippet of a song. So every time the through line was, I'm ending each of my auditions with a little bit of music.
Yeah.
And with me and acoustic guitar. Again, I thought I did well. Left, was like, okay, well, we'll see. You know, I
flew back to Chicago again. Or no. Got a call that night when I was in my hotel that they wanted me to come do meetings the next day at 30 Rock. So in that moment, I was like, oh, I got it. Like, this is crazy. I think I fucking booked it. Then I get in 30 Rock and everyone is there from the day before. So I'm like, oh, okay, so this is just another rung on the ladder. Oh. They make that you spend all day long. This is so stressful for me.
Seriously, you're there for like 10, 11 hours where you're meeting all of the writers, head writers, Che, Colin. You're meeting producers. You're checking back in with Lorne. It's a whole day of meetings, right? That they're just sussing you out and poking you with a stick a little bit, right? So you're there all day. Go back to Chicago. Again, at this point was the only time I was ever like, maybe, you know, like every other stage I was like, all right, didn't get it, but crazy story. Flying back to Chicago that last time I was like, maybe they'll, I mean, I did well. They laughed and I feel like, but I was like, but I mean, that didn't feel like a winning audition.
Second guess yourself.
You have so much time to overthink it.
Yeah.
But it was wild and I was glad that, you know, I even got the chance. And then I remember probably a week later, maybe 2 weeks later again, sitting at my desk on Friday at like 4:30 p.m. and they call me at work, and at that point my bosses knew I was doing this, right? They were giving me time off to go fly to New York. So my bosses were so fucking cool and so supportive of me at my tech startup. And it was like, pop some champagne and had they were happy for me. And basically I got the call from Lorne and talked with them, and they were going to bring me on. And that was the high point. I mean, like, getting that call.
How did that go? Lorne called you specifically?
You get the call, and it's like his assistant, and it's like, you're on with Lorne Michaels. And then I like stood up and went in the conference room, and I'm like pacing around like a wild man. And it's like I'm in a conference room in an office building in downtown Chicago, and I'm getting told that I'm going to have to move. I'm going to be living in New York on Monday. So it's like, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy.
Wow.
And my girlfriend had to pack up all our shit and drive a U-Haul across the country when I went and found us an apartment in Chicago while I was there. It was wild, but it's like that. And of course I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. They like to control the narrative and when everything is announced. So you're just sitting on this nugget. You want to tell everybody. I want to tell everyone, and I can't, because if it gets out, people absolutely know that it was me that it got out.
Yeah, 100%.
So you're being very careful and tight-lipped, but the word's kind of going around. Like, I tell my girlfriend and people in that room. Like, I worked with some of my improv friends, so they saw me get the call and get it. So it went around pretty quick, but had it going away. It's like a silent, close friends only going away party that we were moving, and that was the high watermark. Everything, like, from there was downhill. But it really, that was as good as it got, was the day I got the call.
How long were you in New York for total?
I did a year on the dot.
Year on the dot.
Did a season of the show.
They get you a place and everything, or
they put you up in a hotel your first couple weeks that you're there, and they're like, and they give you a little egg of money to find a place.
Yeah.
So they're like, here's your relocation money. And I remember being like, oh, like $10,000 bucks. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be spending $10,000 bucks to move. Oh my God. Finding a place in Manhattan.
In New York.
I needed way more than that.
You need like the first 3 months of rent, the last month of rent, security deposit.
It is insanity.
You need a financial backer to get a place.
You need to be a millionaire to live in Manhattan.
Yeah, you really do.
You're not a millionaire on SNL. Yeah. Especially your first year.
One of my girlfriends, she does like primetime events at one of the hottest hotels in Manhattan, and I met her because I was just bar hopping, and I found a really cool like local bar in Soho. And she said her and her husband each make $500,000 a year, and they're by far they're in poverty level in their neighborhood, and they get food stamps.
It was like that. I lived in the worst apartment I ever hoped to live in. Paid like almost 3 times what I was paying in Chicago for a apartment smaller than the size of this room, just a little studio in Hell's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. Like it, not that I'm hating on our room size here. We got plenty of room in here, guys. Yeah. But it was a crazy year for sure. And that place is certainly a whirlwind. And it's hard to be new there, and especially be new and not know anyone who's in that room. It's hard.
What was the hardest part of the experience? Obviously, all of us that have comedy careers, we will have been hired and let go from different things. We'll get a show sold, and then it'll get pulled from the network. I mean, this is shit that happens that we all have to get used to. So it's obviously not a dogging of anything. But I definitely got my ass kicked while I was there. But I will say I never really had a moment where I thought, oh, I suck. It definitely is the kind of place that beats you down because you are told no so much. Like just pitching a new sketch or something. It's brutal. It's hard. It's very hard, and it's very competitive, and it's not the friendliest place. Getting your sketches on.
Of course.
Yeah.
So it's definitely hard being there, but part of it that's hard, like if you're a writer, a first-year writer, and things aren't going so well, it sucks. In that building, it sucks exactly the same as a cast. But what sucks for me is like Twitter knows that I'm not in sketches. So it's like it's a very public failing, that sucks. And for me, I was just like barely in the show and not really getting to showcase what I do, which is like I never.
Oh, it's just so hard because you get all the way there,
and then you're
there,
and then really, honestly,
like being benched on the NFL.
Never really gotten that bad, really. The things that I did get to do, a few of the things that people were like, oh, you got to do this, were not things that I wrote. They were just like, throw this kid a bone, you know, like this happened to be sketches that they let me do. The only ones that I wrote that got into the show was the Floribama Shore parody that I'm very proud of, and it was funny. And then Heidi Gardner and I wrote this horn sketch where we're just like these insane people. Very weird sketch. And of all the things I wrote that year, it would be probably towards the bottom of the barrel of like, yeah, they'll pick this to go. Yeah. You know, it just was wild of what they chose. But I auditioned. Every time I auditioned, I played comedy songs, right? And I was like, oh, this is my lane. No one here does this. So
yeah, it's like the new Sandler.
I thought foolishly that they would let me do that, at least attempt that once, and that never got that chance. So definitely looking back on that time, it feels a little bit like it was mostly bad timing, you know. There's a lot. It was such a bloated cast. They did not need another white guy. They didn't. Yeah. There's no feedback loop, so there's no one in there telling you like, hey, you know what? Don't try to do music anymore.
And if impressions aren't your strong suit, that is kind of tough.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's generally what most sketches are aimed around.
Right.
Whether it be politics or pop culture, which in those writing about those, like I've had people ask me that in the past. Oh, why don't you submit a sketch to, or, you know, a packet to SNL?
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. And, you know, and I used to write a lot of sketches, but I enjoy writing stand-up that's storytelling.
Same.
And I'm excited to write my one-woman show or like finesse that. But like to write for pop culture or politics is not something I really love to do.
I hear that. Yeah.
And so, I mean, you get to do it in maybe a song or two, but like...
And like, it's not as much of a character-heavy sketch show as it used to be. Like the Spartan cheerleaders and stuff like that kind of stuff. They don't do that anymore. Yeah. It's mostly,
It's mostly impressions.
Yep.
So that's what's tough is I know a lot of people that do amazing original characters, and they just had to make their own name for themselves on Instagram and YouTube doing their characters. Yeah. Because, you know, maybe that's not the right place for them anymore.
Exactly. And I think that, it's been long enough that I've been out of there now that, you know, I got nothing but goodwill towards them, and I'm thankful that they even had me on at all. But I certainly, while I was there, didn't get much of a chance to even. I was pretty much dead on arrival. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a good experience to have, and honestly, you don't like to go through something like that in order to just say like it built you as a performer, but it did sure did.
Oh yeah, no, I'm super thankful for it. But. No one's like, yeah, God, he was really great on the show. It's like I was barely in it, you know. And so that's always fun. Is you know, Twitter and all that is always nice. Like during this time that guy got fired for everything. Like, of course, my mentions go through the roof. As like, he's just another useless Luke Null, and they wouldn't have done anything anyway. And I'm like, I'm not racist, so please don't lump me. I'm not dropping hard C's.
Well, people always do that to you. Like even on like. Because I'd had Steve Ranastisi on here before, and he's openly talked about his whole 9/11 thing.
Right. I mean,
and on 9/11, I was getting tweeted at and all this stuff. Your colleague did this. I'm like, listen, are all comedians colleagues? Yes. Do I stand by people that I call my buddies? Yes. But like, doesn't mean everybody does something
own all
perfect.
Their shit.
I'm not going to own all their mistakes. No. But like, you know, I didn't know him during that time, and like, and also, you know. People just always want to get bent out of shape about something. And then the next week there's a new thing to be bent out of shape about.
It is true. It is certainly true.
So since SNL, you've put out an album. You've
put out a live album. I've been doing a lot of stand-up, and I'm thankful that was something that I had to fall back on and that I'm good at and I've been doing a long time.
Yeah.
I'm excited to tour around and like.
What is your album? Where can people find it?
My album is called Guitar Comic, real on the nose. Just let people know what they're getting. It's everywhere that you can stream. You know, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, everything. It's all good in the hood.
And what about your upcoming tour? Where can everybody find information for that?
So, going to be putting out this week. We're ironing out every date and every location, but it's mostly going to be the Midwest and like. New England mostly. So it's
cool.
Like Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, maybe Indy, Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Philadelphia, New York City, DC, Boston.
Oh, that's a nice run.
That'd be good.
That's a really good run.
It's a nice little line.
And where can everybody find that information when it eventually comes out?
I'll be blowing it out on all the
Twitter
old social medias. Yeah.
What are those? Plug your handles.
I think I'm just Luke Null. I might be Luke _Null. I legitimately don't know.
I think you are Luke _Null.
But if you, there you go, Luke _Null. Yeah, I mean, I'm on there. I'm not the most, I'm not.
You're there.
I'm there.
You're there.
I'm putting it out. Putting it out there.
And you can find me at NPH Comedy on all platforms. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Future Role Model or at Role Model Pod on Twitter. Future Role Model is a name of my new weekly live Las Vegas show as well.
Hell yeah.
So you'll be seeing plenty of people that you've seen and heard on this podcast in Las Vegas to come. And please come support that at the Artisan Hotel every Monday at 8 p.m. I will be there for the first 8 of them for sure. And anything you want to say in closing?
Honestly, don't follow me on social media.
I think that's the best closeout I've had. All right, peace.